Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth Your While. I'm Jack.
And I'm Ellie. This is the podcast where we chat to industry experts and sustainable business leaders as we try to uncover the easiest and most effective ways to make your business better for the planet.
Today we're here with Marcus Hemsley. Hi Marcus.
Hello, happy to be here, guys.
For those of you that don't know, Marcus is the founder at the agency Fountain Partnership, and he's also the founder of the Million Tree Pledge, which is a collective of businesses and individuals who have so far pledged to plant, is it 41 million trees? Is that right?
It's 45 now, so it's going up by the day. So yeah, and we've got 8 million in the ground so far as well, so that's really important.
Amazing. So yeah, Marcus is saving the world slowly. So we're really excited to speak to you today, Marcus. I guess the first thing, I don't know if you wanted to start by just sort of recapping like who you are and your background and how you guys came to be.
Yeah, of course. So it's funny, the environmental side of the marketing kind of go hand in hand in a way. So I studied philosophy at the University of East Anglia up here in Norwich, and from the philosophy school across the way, there was the ecology centre, there were climate scientists, and I remember chatting to a friend of mine who was studying environmental sciences, and she said, "I'm not going to have children. I'm just too scared," and that really hit me. And so speaking to those people that were scared about the future, and this is back in 2005, the people on the front line, scientists saying, "Look, it's not looking good," really started to sort of make me think. And interestingly enough, my lecturer at the time, a guy called Dr. Rupert Reed, was running to be MEP for the East of England for the Green Party. And I said, "Well, Rupert, I'd love to help you out, with your campaigning. What can I do?" He said, "What are your skill sets?" And strangely enough, I'd come across digital marketing. I always wanted to set up my own business, and I've been going to all these personal development seminars, and I went to one called the World Internet Summit, and I'd learned all about Google AdWords, and I was doing keyword research and stuff, which probably sounds quite boring for a lot of your listeners, and it was boring for lots of my housemates as well at uni, but I found it interesting. And I said, "Look, I can run Google ads and Facebook ads for the Green Party." And he goes, "Brilliant." And he came back the next week and said, "The East of England Green Party has got £40,000 for you to spend." And I was like, bloody hell, I was a student who was earning £6 an hour working in a bar. So I started cutting my teeth running Google ads and Facebook ads for the Green Party. And that was quite interesting. Back then, you could bid on any word on Google, right? So I was thinking, okay, I want centre-left voters, on Google, what are they typing in? And I thought, well, hold on a second, they read The Guardian and The Independent. So I'd run Google ads for the word Guardian saying Labour voter, ? Here's why you should never vote Labour again. And they'd click to it, and there'd be a video of the comedian Mark Thomas, who was quite popular at the time, with Rupert saying, "Here's why you should vote Green." So right at the very beginning, I was getting involved with green politics and digital marketing. In 2009, when I graduated in 2008, I started Fountain in 2009. Obviously, I was just picking up work from various types of companies, but I always tried to move towards renewable energy. So working with solar panel installers, heat pump installers, etc. And that was going really well. It was quite funny at the time. I had a bit of imposter syndrome. I was like, "Who's gonna, listen to me? I'm just a graduate who's been playing around with these AdWords and stuff politically." So I offered a service whereby I just said, "Don't pay me unless I can get you a return on investment." So it was very much a sort of performance-based approach, and that's a large part of what Fountain does today. But it's not all plain sailing, if I'm being really honest. I actually lost my way a bit. I got really into growing the business, and we took on corporate clients. And I kind of forgot a bit about, doing stuff for climate in a funny way. I was a Green Party councillor for 4 years, but around sort of 2015, 16, I was so focused on the business, I kind of lost my ethics a little bit, if I'm being honest. And we took on a sports car company. I won't say who it is, but there's this, a car company that sells sports cars. And I remember that we were running a campaign for them, and it wasn't going perfectly. So they called me in to help with a strategy. And there's an expression in America where they say, I left it all out on the field. But what I did is I turned up and I put all my energy into really helping them sell more sports cars. And I was exhausted. And I remember walking out on my lunch break, and I walked through the city centre, and there was some children striking for the climate. And I just burst into tears because I realized, like, what am I doing? I'm using my energy to do something that's, at that point, it was like a second awakening for me. I was like, no, this is it. Like, we're getting rid of that client, and we're only going to focus on, digital for good, ideally. And that sort of spurred off my journey. And then obviously a few years ago, set up the Million Tree Pledge. So that's a whistle-stop tour of me. Hopefully that's...
Obviously we've spoken on a few occasions, which has been nice. So I've got to know you a tiny bit. And I always notice you seem really, really wise and composed. What's that about, and how do I get like that? Because that's how I would like to be. And I'm like, oh, that should be easy. And then every day it's just like super intense, blah, 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 blah. And then I speak to someone like you and I'm like, how does he do that? What's the secret?
Okay, so you catch me at my best moments, maybe, but no, if I'm being honest, so my mum is a CBT therapist. She's retired now. So from the age of 15, I have been reading books on psychology and personal development and stuff, and that has been a staple for helping me out a lot and remaining balanced. Wise, it's very kind of you to say. It's probably not my own wisdom. It's probably because I'm always reading and always learning. And I think, like when you hang around with lots of people who are founders, who are in business, they're always doing that. They're always on a podcast, they're always talking about ideas. I can't remember which philosopher said it, but they said, simple minds talk about other people, like okay minds talk about events, and great minds talk about ideas. Now I gossip as well, so I have a simple mind at times and talk about other people, but I try and remember that actually, like it's better to talk about ideas that are impacting the world rather than spend your time gossiping or talking about.
I think it's interesting you said about like psychology, because I think really that's the secret, isn't it? I think any business or organization that becomes successful or really successful, which is obviously, I mean, someone like me or someone like you, that's kind of how we think. I think at the end of the day, they just become really good at communicating, really good communicators. So yeah, and I suppose that's more important for you because you're in that space of marketing and building brands, scaling.
Absolutely, everything's communication, right? It doesn't really matter what I think and say, it's how you hear it, and every message you put out is about how the person receives it. And it's difficult because when you hear what I'm saying, it's being cut with your mood, your your history, your psychology, everything. So you have to try and work out what's the highest probability of communicating in a way that connects with people. But I think really it's quite simple. It's just being human. I think a lot of people with marketing and comms, they overthink it and complicate it, and they try and communicate in ways that just don't connect with people. I think the big mistake people make on the internet is they assume that people will take the time to really read something that's quite technical and quite dry. And actually, there's a guy called Jakob Nielsen who's a usability expert, and he says that when you're online, you're sort of leaning forward when you read, and you're being very speedy and interactive, like different parts of your brain are lighting up. So there's an impatience there. When you're reading a book, you're leaning back, and you're more likely to take in the words. But people don't think about that. They look at it as if like, oh, everyone's going to take my time to read it. There's a brilliant quote from a marketing book called Bored to Brave, which says that most marketeers think they sound like Han Solo, but actually they sound like C-3PO.
That's me.
Yeah, I did. I listened to a TED talk, and there's a guy talking. He was talking about imagine if you were like in a it's obviously a marketer. Imagine if you were in a party in a room full of people, and you just like stood up on a table and you just said, you should talk to me because I'm amazing and I'm really funny and I can do. And he said, imagine if that's what you did at a party, it wouldn't work. And he said, if you're a brand, imagine how you would communicate with people at a party if you were having fun, if you were trying to make a connection. And that's the secret to content, really, to how to communicate. So
100%. The mantra I have with content is serve, don't sell.
Yeah.
Serving people and really helping them. Some of the best content I think we all consume, like, is you want to solve problems publicly. You're saying, here's a problem that a lot of people find really difficult, it's quite painful, and here's some solutions that have worked for others, and hopefully it might work for you. And it's kind and it's helpful, and it's, like you say, it's how I would be in person, in one-to-one.
I did actually stalk some of your content earlier, so on LinkedIn. So you've probably got a notification. But yeah, I think your content's really cool. I saw a thing about like burnout that you posted, and I was quite interested in that, because I think that's something that I'm kind of struggling with. I feel like maybe I'm like a bit earlier on in the journey than you are or have been, if you know what I mean. But I don't know if you could explain.
Yeah, it's such a common thing with founders. I think it really is. And I think the problem is that we've got this hyper-stimulated world where we can always do more, right? You know, like 100 years ago or so, like you ran a business, but you could clock off at a certain time. You could go home and not be, you could think about work, but you wouldn't have to actually do it. Whereas now we can go online and do it all the time. And the observation I've had is that, like, people say, oh, we need to slow down. But that's not just physically, it's mentally as well. We have an inner speed, and we can really sort of rev up our thoughts. And I don't know, like, we've over at you guys, if you've ever been like, when you're on holiday or on a beach or walking or whatever, like the speed of your thoughts is just slower. There's more of a content. And I think there's a natural speed to us. And the problem is we're always in fight or flight when we're working a lot. And there's a book I read years ago called Why Zebras Don't Get Stress Ulcers. And it basically talks about all the other animals, right? And you think about it, if you look at like the wildlife program where there's a gazelle getting chased by a lion, and the gazelle escapes, and then 10 minutes later the gazelle's like grazing, it's just relaxed and it's chilled, it's out of fight or flight, and it hasn't got PTSD, it doesn't need to see a therapist, like what's going on. And the difference is we've got a prefrontal cortex that can reimagine being chased by the lion, and we can reimagine it for days and weeks and years, and we can keep redoing that and revving it up and putting us in fight or flight. And the scientist that wrote it, evolutionary psychologist, said that humans have only really evolved, like our cousins, the apes, etc., to be in fight or flight once every 72 hours. So that's a healthy way to be. I'm in fight or flight. Like I was in fight or flight this morning when someone cut me up in traffic. I was driving in, and I was like, you know, I wasn't so stable and wise in that moment. So I was, and then I was late for a meeting, so I was rushing. So fight or flight again. And then something else happened I didn't want this morning. I was in fight or flight again. And then someone said something, you know, they're going to change some copy on our website. I didn't agree with that. So 4 or 5 times. And then, but if I go home this evening and I'm replaying that in my mind, I'm getting all of that. So the body's getting full of cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and that's okay for a little while, and it's okay when you're in your 20s, etc. But over a certain period, it builds up, and then the system starts to break down. So my experience with sort of burnout, it did lead to the Million Tree Pledge in a way, as well as I'm recovering from long COVID, and the reason I got that is that when I got COVID in March 2020, the economic sky was falling in. You think about it, I didn't know furlough was a word I didn't know. I didn't expect the Conservatives to do anything like furlough. So we're having clients ringing up saying, right, we're shutting off all marketing. And I was there saying, look, actually, you know, helping the account director say, evidence shows that if you do that, you know, it's going to be harder for you to get back out of it. I kind of went into like sort of like on a war footing because I wanted to try and help people. So over a weekend, I worked and built a website called Digital Marketing When Demand Drops. And then I rang a friend of mine who's senior at Barclays and said, let's do a webinar of all your Barclays business customers around the UK of what to do digital marketing when demand drops. But I was doing all of this whilst having a cough, a fever, you know, like feeling a bit sick. But of course, you know, you've got to keep going. Well, I thought I had at least. And I remember doing that webinar for these Barclays customers, and I had a fever and I was really worried because I was coughing so much that I didn't know if I could get through it. And the adrenaline took me through it. But then afterwards, I was sitting on a chair and I just collapsed and crawled into bed, and I was there for 4 weeks. And what the doctor said is like, look, you were sort of on the edge of burnout anyway. And then a virus came and pushed you over the edge. And you've got what's called post-viral fatigue. And then that transpired. They now call it long COVID. But I've met a number of people in the last couple of years who have been business owners who have been really, really pushing it. And athletes as well. It's normally business owners or, you know, or people very high in their career, really pushing themselves to the limit. They get a virus, and it could also just be the common cold. It could also just be flu. So we're coming into the winter season now, right? And you've got to be so careful that it's just a convergence of problems. Your body's, your immune system's low because it's, you're really stressed. Like stress does lower the immune system. And then you get a virus, you keep pushing and like not eating properly, not sleeping, coffee, lemsip, sugar, all these sort of things. And it all converges to just a breakdown. And then you get stuck. And what I mean when I said it ties in with the Million Tree Pledge is when I was stuck in bed struggling to breathe. That's when I thought I need a distraction. So I went onto the ecology.com platform and started planting trees. And then I had that dream of like, what if I planted 1 million? That'd be amazing legacy to leave. And then I researched it, and it turns out that actually there's 3 trillion trees that have been lost. So that's half of all the trees on the planet. And 1 million and a trillion sounds similar. We know there's a big difference, but I remember an economist years ago explained the difference between 1 million, billion, and a trillion in time. Have you guys come across this before? The difference in okay, so we're going to play a game here, and your listeners are going to play a game. So if all of us now are going to count to 1 million, how long do you think it would take in seconds? I.e., how long is 1 million seconds? In days, weeks, months, years? How long would it take for us to count to 1 million? Any guesses?
I'm not as clever as you, Marcus, so I'm not able to do that. Eleanor?
I don't know, 30 days? Is it days, this one?
Years.
Weeks? Days?
Lifetimes.
30 days.
You guys are good, honestly. Like most people say like 5 years, but it's actually, 1 million seconds is 11 days. Okay. But here's the thing that's interesting. 1 billion, to count to 1 billion, will take 31 years, which means 1 trillion is 31,000 years, which means 3 trillion is 93,000 years. So my Million Tree Pledge is like 11 days versus 93,000 years. So that's where the idea of the pledge came from, is like, we need other people to start doing this, to start with the reforestation piece. So there was good things that came out of burnout, certainly in long COVID, and it helped me learn these things.
Sounds like it kind of got you back on track with, your kind of purpose in a way, I think.
What do you think about things like yoga or meditation or mindfulness? Because I find that helps me a lot. And I know that when I don't do it, I'm definitely a lot. I can notice the difference, things like road rage.
You're an angry person, basically.
Thank you. But it comes out more. And I do think that stuff works. Like meditation is hard. Like I can't really. But, it's. Do you have any experience of that? Do you think?
Yeah, I've tried all of them, and you do what's right, what works. But the thing that I've noticed is all of them work to the degree of there's a fundamental design that actually humans do better when we're slowed down to the speed of life and have less on our minds. So whatever works for you, because yoga is just breathing, being present in your body. It's all about slowing down and being present. That's the sort of thing that ties them all together. And even, I'm not religious or spiritual, but some people just going to church or going to, synagogue or a mosque or somewhere and just slowing down.
I've read reading's really good at like de-stressing and slowing down. So maybe that's why you're so good at this.
There's a guy called Michael Neal, a coach I worked with when I got stressed, and he's a fascinating guy. He talks about it like a revometer in a car, your thoughts. So like you've got thoughts per minute, like you've got revolutions per minute in a car. You've got thoughts per minute. So say like 0 to 100 thoughts per minute is like us now having a nice chat. 100 to 200 thoughts per minute is me rushing around the office, and then like someone's like calling me, and then this, and then like 200, 300 thoughts per minute is I'm really late for a meeting, I'm coming in, it's like fallen over, like someone shouts at me, or like all these things are happening, I'm really worried and thinking about it, it's all going wrong. We've all had those moments. But what do you do when you've been over revving your car and the engine is too hot? How do you cool it down? Take your foot off the accelerator. Like in statistics, they call it reverting back to the mean. And the real thing I've realized is our default is well-being, right? Not like bliss and like ecstasy and all the rest of it, but those people have got, I don't know if you guys have got kids, but I've got an 8-year-old son, but you notice that with children, right? Young children, their default when they wake up is happy, and content, and then they get upset and they need feeding or they fall over, but their ability to just like let crappy thinking go and just slow down and be present, they're enjoying life a lot. And I think there's a moment I've observed, I don't know if it's true for other people as well, but when you first wake up and before the brain starts chattering, there's almost a second, if only for a moment, where you're just like, it's pretty cool being alive. oh no, I've got
Yeah.
this to do and I'm late and blah, blah, blah. Then you realize it's the thoughts that are taking you away from that. So to your point,
Yeah.
really, yeah, all of that stuff, meditation, whatever works for you, just try it. The thing I found with meditation is I end up sort of stressing myself out about not doing it in the right way. And then I got a bit competitive with my mum on Headspace that, we'd like having these streaks and like, I didn't want to miss a day. And I remember like waking up at like 11:30, I'd just gone to bed and sitting up going, haven't meditated yet, and like rushing out to meditate, realizing that's completely the wrong energy. So I think the thing I've just observed, which seems to be universally true, is we feel better when we're running at the speed of life rather than sped up things. We do better when we have less in our mind, and it's okay. And the way we have less in our mind is we just slow down and just wait. And there's a natural sort of system that lets us sort of drop back in. And whether it's going for a walk or yoga or any stuff like that helps, then find what's right for you.
I think it's hard in like a bit. Obviously, we've got like a fast growing business, and I think it sounds like you've experienced that. And I think it's hard because it seems like everyone in our organization, it's like every day people have this plan of what they're going to work on, and then they get interrupted with other people, even clients, and obviously that's always welcome. But all of a sudden, it's like you thought you were going to do something, and then someone else has taken control of your time, and I think that's what builds the stress up a bit. And obviously, it's something that, like, especially Eleanor, like you're really passionate about trying to resolve this, because obviously we're like a people and planet brand, and we're trying to think what can we do differently in our day to day and with our staff. What do you guys do at Fountain? What's your secret?
Secret dealing with, I think it's just so what we do for culture, which works really well, is we have a coaching system in place. So the guys will coach each other, and that's really lovely because actually they will learn to coach. But you've just got someone who you can just go to and just say, and just unload a little bit and say, here's what's going on. Like, I had all these plans and this has happened, and it's sort of like, and the guys are just trained to sort of, just not to sort of tell people what to do, but just listen and just be present with someone. That's almost enough, because that, again, it slows them down. All that sort of busyness in their head, noise in head is now projected out, and they just feel a little bit better. They got it off their chest. And then, when they're a bit settled down, they probably know what the right thing to do is. We try and ask the coaches not to give too much advice, because often your advice isn't right. Like, you guys know what's right for you. You're smart people. It's just, when you're stressed, stress makes you stupid. It just does with all of us. They've proven it shuts off, fight or flight. You shuts off thinking parts of the brain. So when you're in a low mood, sometimes it's just like, look, you're in a low mood. It's okay. Like, let's just write it out and let's give you support in the meantime. Like do tasks that are more simple rather than force yourself to like give that person a call back or whatever. But yeah, I think it's just caring for people, understanding that life's a contact sport and everyone's hurting at different stages at different times. And, to your point at the beginning about communication, it's always thinking about other people's points of view. But it's hard to do when you're stressed, because then you're blinkered and you're feeling bad. So you're in a more a selfish place, an ego place, rather than being able to go, yeah, gosh, that must be tough for you. Yeah, if I was in your situation, that'd be really difficult. So we try and build that culture of caring, because I think our clients deserve it as well. You can be really good you can be really talented, but you can't outperform a bad mood and a bad state. Like, if you're in a real stressed, low mood, fight or flight, run down, you can be the best digital marketer in the world, but you're not going to be performed very well. So that's, I think, why culture is so important. And plus, life's hard enough as it is. The last thing you want is work being a difficult place. Like, when we founded Fountain, I found it with 3 other people, and they all worked in quite a toxic workplace. And Rebecca, my other half, came home one day and she was in tears because the people were shouting at her and stuff. Like, the boss was really toxic. And I said, that's it. We've had enough. We're going to build a business where no one ever goes home crying. Like, that's just it. Like, we just don't. You can do it, but it's hard. You just got to be patient. It takes time, and there's ups and downs. And the more people you have, the more dynamics occur. But we're pretty careful with who we let in at Fountain. Like, there used to be people that do have emotional sovereignty, or at very least, if they don't have complete emotional sovereignty, are coachable and are open to saying, yeah, sorry, I was wrong, I was in a bit of a bad mood, rather than can be like, no, I'm the victim and everyone else is bad. So I don't know if that's helpful to people listening, but that's kind of what we do here.
So just going back to the Million Tree Pledge, so can you tell us, like, what gave you that idea? Like, why was it trees? Obviously, it's wanting to help the climate crisis and what was it about a million trees? How does it all work? Can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's an ease with, like, this is accessible for people to plant trees through really good charities like Eden Reforestation. I use personally the ecology.com platform, so you can see the trees, but obviously we need to put back all those trees regardless of the climate crisis. There's an issue of like biodiversity and everything else, but I think the big thing everyone misses about climate change is I think there's a narrative that isn't particularly correct that people have bought into, of we just need to get to net zero by 2050 and everything will be okay. But of course that's not true. If you look at the science, even if we had got to net zero today, there's still about 2.5 trillion tons of CO2 and CO2 equivalents that need to be drawn down for us to have a habitable planet for sort of decades and centuries on. So my prediction is that, in the second half of the century, like you see sort of wind turbines and, not enough, unfortunately, but like, energy pylons and stuff, there'll be loads of like direct air capture machines just sucking it all down. But the technology is not there yet, and we don't know if it ever will be, but I think that's where we're going to have to go. In the interim, trees are a great way of drawing down carbon. They're a good medium-term solution. And I think we all need to be doing that. And the cost per tree is, anywhere from sort of 10 pence up to like £6. So you can pick where it is and so on. So it's so important for drawing down. And I think, like, I'm looking at my own personal net zero, right? So my house we've got the air source heat pumps. We're getting solar PVs this year. Also, I use Ecotricity for my energy supplier. I've got a hybrid, but the next car I'm going to get is going to be electric. So I'm kind of going through like business to do with scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. I'm doing my own personal scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. But everyone needs to be doing that. But I think the point of the million tree pledge is going way beyond your carbon footprint, right? Like by planting 1 million trees, Fountain will draw down, 40 like the equivalent of 40 fountains. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And for me, an important thing is looking at your lifetime emissions. So what have you as a business dumped into the atmosphere, and are you taking ownership for that? And not just taking ownership for your own emissions, but for other people that won't. And I think that's so important. It's an important story that I want to tell. And
when we looked into it, I was surprised it's not actually that expensive to plant trees. I mean, it's not cheap, but for businesses, is it something like £180,000 at the moment if you wanted to plant 1 million trees, roughly?
Yeah, I mean, because I guess a lot of businesses will think this is a great thing to do, but with the economy as it is, surely that's something we can't do right now. Is it? What's the kind of business case for it?
Yeah, it's a great question. It really is, because I think not that you want to do it for a return on investment, but we have seen from a lot of our pledges like good stories about since like the first thing that we noticed at Fountain, I'll talk about us for our pledges, is that staff retention. I mean, we've got a really high staff retention anyway, but lots of people wrote to me, people I didn't know who, that were worried about the climate crisis, like staff members. There's 50 of us at Fountain, you see, but people were writing to me saying, I was so worried about the climate crisis. I'm so happy part of the business is doing this. So that helps staff retention. Well, that's good, because there's a cost to that, as we know, like it's expensive to hire people, and there's recruitment fees and all the rest of it. There's then also a client retention piece as well, right? Clients really like it and they talk to us, and especially ones. So we've got Mitsubishi heat pumps as a client. They love it. They're really excited, and we're looking at doing stuff together. So and there's opportunities of that. There's joint PR stuff. And then James Lizards, he's an accountant, he's one of our pledges, said the way he looks at it is it's costing his business maybe 2% of revenue a year, because he's doing it over maybe 6 or 7 years. He's like, if me talking about this doesn't attract like-minded customers to be more than 2% a year, I'll be really surprised. And he's actually gathering data to make the clear business case. So I think, if you look at it as like, I mean, there's organizations like 1% for the planet, but if you look at it as like, well, if it's 1 or 2% of my revenue, what would need to happen to make more than that back? And is there a high probability of that occurring if I take the pledge, given the positive PR both internally and externally? I'm pretty sure there is. There's an early mover advantage at the minute, because hopefully in 5-10 years time there'll be many thousands of pledges, and it might not be an exciting thing anymore, but it does distinguish you from other people that have just perhaps joined ecology and are doing it's great they are doing the bare minimum, but they're just doing the basic tree planting at £50 a month or whatever.
I think one of the nicest things I've seen is like the Million Tree Pledge is a really good example. It's like building a real community around it, and businesses collaborating, and I think that's where they can get some kind of value back. I mean, not that you need value, because like ecology is testament to an organization where people literally get nothing tangible for planting trees. It's just it's just the kind of the feel good of actually doing something positive. But I think the community that you built around the Million Tree Pledge, I think that's reason enough for people to get involved. That's what business is at the end of the day.
You're entirely right. It's so, and community is what people want. We're social animals, right? We want to be around, and it makes it worthwhile. But no, you're entirely right. We have built a lovely community around the Million Tree Pledge, and there's a lovely one around ecology. And I've met so many incredible people on this journey on the last sort of 18 months, you guys included, right? It's just a pleasure to meet such amazing, like-minded people. And I think at a time when there isn't much hope, it really does give you hope.
Yeah. And is it true that if you're a smaller business as well, do you have something where smaller businesses can come together and plant 1 million trees collectively? I'm just thinking for those smaller businesses that can't commit.
Absolutely, yeah. So even though there's 45 million trees pledged, there's actually 75 pledges. So they have what we call collective forests, because our smallest pledger is a one-woman band. Laura, who's wonderful, and she's a sole trader, but she was very bold in the run up to COP last year. She said, right, that's it. She took like most of her savings in her business, about 10 grand or so, took it out and just planted 100,000 trees and said, right, I've done this. Any more sole traders or very small businesses want to join me in doing 100,000, and we'll have a collective forest of 10 people. So I think we've got 4 or 5 of those forests that have individuals that pledge to do 100k, 1,000 trees. So, and that's around sort of 10. I think it's closer to 18 grand now because the prices have gone up, but it's more affordable. And people are doing it over a longer period of time. They don't have to do what Laura did and just do it in one fell swoop. You can do it over 3-4 years or whatever. But you're right, Elliot, it helps it become much more accessible to people.
So how do businesses get involved then if they want to join the Million Tree Pledge?
Brilliant. Well, look, they can reach out to me personally. Obviously, I'm always on LinkedIn, as Jack was saying. But yeah, you can go to milliontreepledge.org and inquire through the website. And yeah, we'll get in touch with you guys. Hopefully, you'll put them our way as well. So I think, yeah, just if you know anyone who might be interested, doesn't have to be, your organization might not be in the right place to do it right now, but anyone put them our way. I should say the Million Tree Pledge has 2 parts. It's not just about pledging to plant 1 million trees and doing it. The second part is finding at least 2 other pledges, so it grows exponentially. So you may have done Crystal Hosting is a brilliant example, wonderful hosting business, and they're actually pledged to plant 1 billion trees now, but they've already done their million. Jeez. And I think they've got us 1 pledger so far. So they still haven't finished their full pledge, even though they've planted 1 million trees and got us 1 new member. They need 1 more to have completed their pledge. So that's a really nice way of doing it as well.
Yeah, amazing. So yeah, I think obviously this podcast is all about helping businesses to be more sustainable. I guess what we'd like to know is if you had, we might have covered this already, but if you had kind of one piece of advice to give to businesses on how to be more sustainable, what would you say?
Oh gosh, one piece. I mean, probably the quickest thing is just switch to 100% renewable energy provider, right? I know bills are going up. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Ecotricity. I think they're brilliant, but there's the good energy as well. Go on to which.co.uk and it will rank the best, like the real greenest renewable energy suppliers, not just, the big 6 that say they're doing a bit of renewable energy. I like Ecotricity because they're putting a lot of money, they put all their profits back into building more wind turbines and solar farms. And I think that's really important. So that's probably the quickest thing they could do. I'll sneak a second one in because I'm being cheeky. Obviously, ecology, just start planting trees, buying carbon credits that invest in moving us towards a more sustainable future. And then obviously, once you get a sense of ecology, it's sort of the gateway drug for hopefully Million Tree Pledge. So there you go.
I keep thinking, because obviously we've joined the Million Tree Pledge, and obviously your concept of if you join, you have to sign up 2 new people, which is really clever. I mean, that's how Uber built such a big business with that kind of thinking. And I kind of feel like if you're a tiny business and you feel like this is too big a thing for you to do, I kind of feel like you're still a platform. You've still got customers. I mean, we're a tiny business and we've got probably 3,500 customers. So I kind of feel like each person should just be trying to collaborate more with their clients, because you might not be that powerful, but your customer base might be.
Yeah, I sit on the BEMA Sustainability Council, and we kind of like we got 5 things from it. So BEMA, sorry, British Interactive Media Association. It's for all the agencies. And we got like 5 steps that everyone should take, and the 5th one is influence, because there's about 400 marketing agencies in that trade body. So all of us have so many customers that are pretty much all of the people that can afford to use a marketing agency, right? There's just thousands of them. And if we influence our customers to be doing this sort of thing, or our clients rather, then that makes such a big difference. You're entirely right, Jack. It's sort of like, what can little old me do? But you've got a network that you can mobilize and encourage to take bold action, because let's not mess around here. We've got 7 years and 3 months left to halve emissions globally. To stay on track to get to it by 2030, we have to halve it. At the minute, it's going back up. It's going the wrong way. So we're completely failing at everything here as a world, not the 3 of us, obviously.
We failed, guys. I actually had a question, Marcus. I wondered what you thought the world was going to be like in 10 years' time.
Oh, wow.
To get your views, your ideas. Where do you think we're heading this time in 10 years? 2032.
Or perhaps where would you like us to be?
Well, that's 2 versions, but yeah, let's hear both versions.
Okay, the way it's heading isn't that great, unfortunately. I think the summer's just, we'll look back and say, gosh, that summer in 2022 when there was a bit of a drought and it was really hot, that's just sort of like, we'll be wanting a summer like that. I just think it's going to get... The trouble is, for humans, is we think linearly, right? But the world changes exponentially. So there's this compounding impact of the climate crisis. So the warming we're feeling now, this hot summer, NASA reckon there's a lagging factor of about 25 years. I mean, you guys might correct me on this. I think that's about right. So the warming we feel now is from the emissions up until like the 90s, right? The late 90s. So, but since like the late 90s, we've dumped more CO2 in the atmosphere than the previous 2 millennia before. So that lagging factor and that exponential. So I think we're just going to see a lot more problems with failing crop yields, more climate refugees. I mean, is it Pakistan and Bangladesh? A third or a quarter of it was underwater recently. Like there's already cracks on the supply chain. I can't see it getting much better. But hopefully there'll be lots of scurrying around, because all the climate change denying and all the absurdity of like, let's keep drilling for oil in North Sea would have just been squashed. So that's the hopeful side, that the current, if I can be political, the current Prime Minister, who is Liz Truss now, who used to work for Shell and whose biggest donor was the chairman of BP, and has just let lots more people drill oil. Hopefully they're out by now, or by the 10 years of the time, and we've got more sensible politicians in who are saying you just can't drill anymore, you can leave it in the ground. And there's an absolute mobilization towards getting a house that looks like the one I'm trying to build. Everyone's got their boilers have been ripped out. We've got air source heat pumps, PV. Everyone's driving electric cars, and there's just a lot more international agreement. China and India aren't just phasing down coal; they've turned it off. So I've gone from perhaps a negative to the positive of like, that's what I'd love to see. But on a really positive note, Million Tree Pledge has got billions of trees pledged. We're really making good guns on reforestation, and that's exciting. And then hopefully more money is going into technology. Like we are at Fountain are giving money towards things like direct air capture, biochar, seagrass, sea algae. Like I love trees, but it's not me just saying it's trees or nothing. It's just, there's a plethora of solutions, and we need to just get a portfolio of them and see what works to draw down as quickly as possible. So yeah, it's going to be a mixed bag. I think that's my forecast.
Sounds fun.
What do you guys think? Any suggestions? How do you guys feel?
I don't know. I think you might be Prime Minister in 10 years, Marcus. That's just
I hope
my guess.
I'd have to pick a party. If I went back into the Greens, they're not going to get elected, so I have to pick a mainstream party. That might be tricky, but it's very kind of you to say.
Just out of interest, if you could have gone back and given yourself like one piece of advice, like just one piece of advice when you were starting out in your career, or maybe when you left university, what would that be?
Worry less. Probably.
Is that possible to worry less? I don't know.
No, probably not. But it's a difficult question because I'm going back from a place that it kind of worked out okay in a lot of instances. So, but did it work out because I worried? I think you can achieve what you want with just being a bit less intense and a bit kinder to yourself and others. Is probably the way. Not that I've been particularly mean to other people, but do you know what I mean? There's been moments when I've really wanted to. I can't
imagine you being mean to people, Marcus.
To both of you. No, I think my other half, and like I run Fountain with Rebecca as well. But there's been moments when I'm quite driven. So when I want to achieve something, it's just blinkers, and I won't have time to think about what Rebecca's going through and support her at the same time. I'm just all in at different points. And, actually, it's interesting. I heard Steve Wozniak speak years ago at an event. He's co-founder of Apple with Steve Jobs. And he said he spoke to Steve Jobs, a few days before he died, sort of on his deathbed, and asked him what his sort of big reflection was, what he would tell his younger self. And Steve Jobs said, probably that I could have achieved everything I achieved, but been a lot less of an arsehole. So
I don't like the king arsehole though, so as great as he was.
Yeah. So I think there's just some truth of with all of this, let's be kind, right? Obviously I was disparaging the current Prime Minister because she's making bad decisions, but with all of it, let's try and be kind with everyone. A lot of people are doing the best with what they've got available for them and the stories they're believing right now. But I think, we can be kind to ourselves and be less stressed. We can kindness to the others and make them less defensive, so we all listen to each other and try and find a way out of it.
And what does it take to build a company that actually has a positive impact on society, in your opinion? What does it come down to?
Consistency. I think, it's the amount of people I've met over the years. So as we started Fountain 13 years ago, who every 3 or 4 years they've got a new business. And they just either they get bored or they change or they, unwind it because they chase the next big thing. And actually, sometimes it's just turning up every day. Consistency over intensity every time. There's a great quote, isn't there? That failure can't cope with persistence. So it's with Fountain, there's 2 options, right? There always was. It was basically either Fountain goes bust and or I die, or we just keep going. So there were tough moments right at the beginning, but it's well, I'm not going anywhere, and none of the rest of us. So it's basically we get back up and we try again, and just stay consistent. Just keep turning up each day, regardless of how you feel, and just trust it will work out.
Good advice.
Yeah, very good advice.
Reduce service to reuse box. Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks for your time today, Marcus. It was really, really cool speaking to you. Really enjoyable. And nice to see you again. Thanks for listening to Earth Your While, the podcast that uncovers the truth about how to make your business better for the planet. We hope today's been Earth Your While.
Earlier this year, we joined a group of inspirational business leaders who pledged to plant 1 million trees over the next 10 years. If you'd like to help us reach our goal, or you'd like to find out some more information, head over to reuserbox.co.uk/Earth Your While.